Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and you're listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. This 30-minute podcast features a new author interviewed by me every single day, 365 days a year, for about 30 minutes. I am also the publisher for Zibby Books, which publishes 12 books a year in fiction and memoir. Our books are already out now. You can check it out on zibbybooks.com. And we have a magazine called Zibby Mag, where we have lots of wonderful essays and lifestyle features. That's at zibbymag.com. We have classes at zibbyclasses.com. And I recently opened a bookstore in LA called Zibby's Bookshop at 1113 Montana Avenue at 11th Street in Santa Monica. I hope that you are able to enjoy some of our other offerings. But this here podcast is the basis of all of it and started in 2018. And no matter what I do, this is basically my favorite thing. Enjoy. This weekend, I'm re-releasing an episode with Kwame Alexander. Kwame and I have gotten to know each other a lot since this first episode. He is amazing and has so many creative ideas and TV shows in the works and movie adaptations. And I originally heard about him through my son, who was loving his books in school. And that is just the best way to hear about any author. So in honor of his new book, which I haven't interviewed him for, but it's called Why Fathers Cry at Night. And in honor of that, I'm re-releasing his old episodes. So you can check out his new book and his old books and become a Kwame fan like I am. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing Kwame Alexander. Kwame Alexander is a poet, educator, and the New York Times best-selling author of 25 books, including Rebound, The Crossover, which won the prestigious Newberry Award in 2015, and Booked. He has won many other literary accolades as well, including the Coretta Scott King Author Honor, the Lee Bennett Hopkins Poetry Prize, 3 NAACP Image Award nominations, the NCTE Charlotte Huck Honor, and the 2017 inaugural Pat Conroy Legacy Award. In addition to writing, Kwame has given back to communities around the world, including in Ghana, where his literacy program, LEAP, capital L-E-A-P for Ghana, trains teachers and has helped build libraries and health clinics. Kwame is the host and producer of the literary variety talk show Bookish, which airs on Facebook Watch, and is the founding editor of Versify, an imprint of Houghton Mifflin Harcourt books for young readers. He frequently visits schools and libraries, where he inspires kids with his book-in-a-day writing. He currently lives in Virginia with his wife and 2 daughters. Hi, Kwame. It's Zibby Owens.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
Thanks so much for doing this interview. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for all of your support, and I'm excited about it.
I have to say, I just finished reading The Crossover, Rebound, and Booked, and I'm completely in awe of you. I feel like you're a literary genius. No, I'm serious. My son actually read your books first, and he couldn't put them down one after another, and he was like, Mom, you should check these out for your show. So a week later, I was crying in bed having read all of them. And anyway, your storytelling is just unique and moving and amazing. So
wow,
thank you.
Well, that's cool. You're welcome.
So let's start at the beginning. I know you grew up in Brooklyn and then Virginia with a college professor father and school principal mother surrounded by words. Can you tell me how you started writing, especially writing poetry, and how that led you to be this ultimate innovator in children's publishing?
I wrote poetry as sort of a necessity at an early age. It was for Mother's Day, and I was well-read, had written a lot of book reports and essays and things of that nature, and probably a few poems at home, because my parents, believed that school didn't end when the school day ended. So I decided to write a poem for my mother on Mother's Day because I knew how to do it. And the response I got from her was just overwhelming. She just loved it. She cried, and I was like, wow, words are really that powerful? And so that just was sort of the beginning for me. I didn't really take it seriously until the end of high school, like senior year and the beginning of college, when, again, it became sort of a necessity. I was sort of involved in at that point, the 1988 or 84 Democratic election, like I was really into it, because I remember Jesse Jackson running for president. And so I wrote a series of newspaper columns in support of his presidency at my high school. And just the uproar of people who were like totally against everything I was saying, including my friends. Like, they couldn't believe I would write articles in support of Jesse Jackson. I was like, wow, words are really powerful. Like, people really are. And then in college, Virginia Tech was pretty invested in companies that did business in South Africa. And so I was a self-proclaimed activist urging our university to divest from those companies. And I used poetry to sort of get my point across. And we had rallies, and people really, it resonated with a lot of students. And I found that girls started finding me pretty interesting. And so then I started writing love poems, and it was on from there, Zibby. I was like, yes, poetry is powerful. Words are powerful. They're going to change not only the world, but they're going to change my life. And I took Nikki Giovanni's class at Virginia Tech, and it was on and popping from then on.
And isn't it true that you wrote a poem to your wife when you were dating her, one a day for a year, and that's how you were courting her?
Yeah, I wrote her a poem or a quote or a paragraph. I wrote her something every day for a year, and sometimes they were more poetic than other times. And I need to go and get those crates and read some of that stuff. Because there was even a time during that year where she was upset with me about something. And so, like, for a month and a half, everything I wrote was trying to sort of make up and apologize. And so, man, but yeah, I really got in touch again with the power of words, because she ended up marrying me. So, hey, it worked.
I'm thinking that's your next book. I don't know.
Oh, my gosh. Interesting.
All right. I get a percentage of this. No, I'm kidding.
I've been talking about or thinking about writing a book for adults, like writing an adult novel. And so many ideas have come to mind, but certainly that's one that could work.
I have to say, in Rebound and the Crossover, I know they're not intended for adults, but I found them to be, on par, if not better, than a lot of books that I read just for me. I mean, the way you talked about loss and, the death of a parent or divorce, these are issues, obviously, that, grown-ups are wrestling with too, especially in how to talk to their kids about it. And I feel like you do such a good job of telling it from the kids' point of view. You say, like, in Rebound, I wish I could stretch my arms like Reed Richards all the way to heaven and hug my father one more time, just one more time. And then it was so beautiful and booked. You wrote, in The Way a Door Closes, you wrote, from your window, you watch with love and happiness sink like twins in quicksand when she drives away, leaving you suffocating in sleeplessness, out of breath and hope, exhausted, trapped, falling. And then in the crossover, I'm sorry to butcher your writing with my horrible voice here, but I'm sure it's more melodic if you read it. But there are no coaches at funerals, no practice to get ready, no warm-up. There is no last second shot, and we all wear its cruel midnight uniform, starless and unfriendly. I am unprepared for death. This is a game I cannot play. It has no rules, no referees. You cannot win. I mean, I literally get goosebumps every time I read this. Tell me about, like, how do you think you've managed to talk so beautifully across both adults and kids, and what has the effect been like on you? I mean, do people come up and thank you all the time? Just tell me about it a little more.
Well, now that I hear you read it, wow, I mean, it is confirmed. I am a genius.
Right?
Whoa, those were beautiful words. All I can say, Zibby, is once you get into the rhythm of writing, and the crossover was 5 years, booked was sort of 2.5 years, Rebound was 2 years. Once you get into the rhythm, it's sort of like a dream state. Like, I don't even remember writing those words. And so all I can figure is I sat in Panera Bread so long in the same chair that eventually, like, it just clicked. And I think that's what happened with the writing. The longer you get involved and invested in these characters in the story, the more the story begins to write itself, and you become sort of the vessel. And are you open to being the vessel? And I'm always open, like, to that sort of inspiration and that level of creativity. But wow, I got to go back and read those books again.
I mean, I could just read it to you all day. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, no, I mean, I hear from a lot of young people, a lot of adults, the impact that the books have had on them. And I think, yeah, some of it has to do with sort of me putting in the work, but I think a great part of it is the poetry. And I think poetry has that power. It's so short, it's so few words. There's so much white space. Like, when it hits you, poetry is meant to get to your heart. Like, that's the goal of it. It's not a lot of words, because each word counts. Each word matters. And it's meant to sort of, when done right, rip your heart out and stomp on it. And so I think that's one of the advantages to writing and poetry when you know what you're doing. And I guess I've just been doing it long enough that I at least think I know what I'm doing.
I think you know what you're doing. If you don't, then I don't know who knows what they're doing. But
oh, thank you.
You also, I like how you mix a bunch of different styles in your books. Like, sometimes you use more of this hip hop vibe, like in the crossover when you write "Ode to My Hair." You wrote, "If my hair were a tree, I'd climb it. I'd kneel down beneath and enshrine it. I'd treat it like gold and then mine it. Each day before school, I unwind it, and right before games, I entwine it. These on my head, I designed it. And one last thing, if you don't mind it, the bet you just made, I decline it." So you have that, like, mixed in with these sort of heartfelt, inner feelings and monologues, all these different styles sort of meshing to make this completely emotional read. Was that intentional, or do you just sort of, just go where the words take you?
Yeah, it's intentional in the sense that, the crossover took 5 years to get published, and that was one of the main concerns. Like, what are you doing? You're all over the place. And I was like, well, this is how the story needs to be told, and this is how I write. And there is no one way for me to, write verse. And I want kids to be exposed to a variety of verse. And there's beauty in all of it. And there's different ways to tell different sides or different facets of the story. Not all, facets can be told well with a rhyming couplet or a lit poem or a haiku. They all deserve their own sort of, style. And so, yeah, I mean, I just sort of feel where I am in the story and what type of poem dictates that. And I'm not sort of limited, or I'm not sort of hemmed up by any notion of what I think or what I think publishers think it should be. And I've never, felt that way. And again, that's why it took so long and why it got so many rejections, because that's sort of the conventional wisdom that it has to be one and it can't be all.
Is it true that 22 publishers rejected the crossover before it went on to win the Newbery Medal?
It is.
Crazy.
It is. I know, right?
What was that like? Like, did you ever want to just give up and just, put it on the shelf and say, forget it?
All the time. Like, I gave up a lot. Like, but every time I got a rejection, I was like, I couldn't write the rest of the day. I pack up my bags, sad, but inevitably, like, I knew I was doing something that was pretty good. Like, even though I was being told it wasn't, I knew that it was good, and I just had to constantly remind myself of that. And I love the story. Like, I loved it, and I figured if I love it, then when it gets published, it's probable that other people are going to love it. Like, or at least there's a better chance that other people are going to love it. And, especially like adults, when we talked about writing for adults, like I knew that it had to be a story about kids, but it had to be a story for everyone.
Right. And is this in part why you started your own imprint called Versify? So you could publish things that maybe other people didn't want to take a chance on?
That's what I thought. That was, yeah. I wanted to find more Kwames and more books that crossed over and sort of, build careers of writers who didn't have opportunities. And that was my goal. And it's so funny because it seems like so many of the books that would have gotten passed on 4 years ago or would have gotten rejected, they're all being bought now. Like everybody's getting it now. They said, well, the crossover sold, a gang of copies and, Verse is selling so well, then we're all going to do it. So I created a level of competition for myself.
With Rebound and the crossover, did you have it all planned out? Just the story, not the way you told it, but the the meat of it, the way everything sort of comes together in the end, and you explain how everyone's related, and you tie in, like Filthy McNasty, and even what they say to each other at night, and all these amazing things between the two books. Did you have that goal at the outset, or did you sort of decide to do that when you started the second book?
You mean with crossover and Rebound?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that there needed to be connections. I knew that some of the connections already existed. I knew that some of them I was going to have to sort of really dig up and say, oh, wait a minute, I think that's a connection too. Let me explore that. So some of them I knew in advance, and some of them I figured out later as I was writing.
So is it true, and this is just a technical question, isn't April in Booked Skinny's daughter?
Yes!
Good, okay.
How cool is that?
That was really cool. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, April is Skinny's daughter, and I think the next book is about April.
Nice. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I think it's about April. So, yep.
Excellent. So I figured after reading these basketball-centric works that you would be some sort of former champion basketball player. But then I read that you were actually a tennis star growing up, that you were number one on the tennis team and had traveled the country in the mid to late 80s playing in tennis tournaments. This is true?
This is so true. I loved it. It was my sport. I mean, I loved playing basketball, but I loved, being competitive in tennis and playing in the tournaments, and probably because I just wasn't great or didn't spend a whole lot of time playing basketball, but tennis was something I committed, 5 or 6 years of my life to.
I'm a huge tennis fan as well. Is there going to be a tennis book, maybe called Net or Slice or something?
Well, I think there is going to be a tennis book. I think it's going to be called Love.
Oh, I'm actually trying to write. I'm writing a memoir myself right now called 40 Love, about falling in love again at 40.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Thanks.
I love it.
I can't wait for your book now. That's amazing. That's awesome. So your poem, Take a Knee, which you originally released on ESPN, which is super interesting in and of itself, is your poetic commentary on our country today. Can you tell me more about the meaning and intention behind Take a Knee, and also what you think about the NFL recently requiring football players not to take a knee?
The NFL needs to watch the poem, apparently.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I wanted to sort of write about why we protest, why we write, why we take a knee. The alternative, I think, for this country would be something that we aren't prepared for. And there's only so long that you can, that you can take the life of a brown boy before a community of people who care about the lives of boys, of children, stands up and fights back. And so this is a way of this community saying, stop, no more. This is a way to protest that. And it's a way to do it in the spirit of, Gandhi and Dr. King. It's a way to do it that doesn't really hurt anyone. And it's a way that people can remain sane. Like, how do you remain sane when these lives of brown boys are being moved, are being shifted, are being blown away like sand in a windstorm? Like, how do you remain sane in the midst of that when you have brown boys as children, or if you teach brown boys, or whatever, if you're just a human being who understands the value of life? Like, how do you remain sane and just move on with your day? And I think one of the ways you do that is you raise your voice and you share your voice and you make your voice heard about what's wrong. And taking a knee is what does that. I mean, it's something really simple. And you have to allow human beings the space to stand up for what's right. And so the poem was about that. And again, if you don't want people taking a knee, if you think that's unpatriotic, wait till you see the alternative, because that's not good for anyone.
Yeah. In your interview on The Opposition with Jordan Klepper, you say that poetry is instant access to humanity. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, you said it best. You said after you read all 3 books, you cried. And you had this emotional connection. Like, that's humanity. When you feel connected to other people you don't even know. Like, people you have no relationship with, but you just feel connection to them because they are human and you are human, and your life and their life and your experiences and their experiences have intersected in this moment. That's humanity. And I think, from my perspective, that's humanity. And I think books have a way of being able to make those connections for us before we've even made them in our lives, so they can be instruction and inspiration for us. And I think poetry is the most immediate way to get there. Like, of all the forms of literature and language, I think poetry can do that quicker, more substantial, and certainly, I think, when done right, like more emotional.
So my son Owen has a question for you. He wants to know, how do you have time to write such good books with all the other things you're doing?
Owen, I have no idea. I don't even stop to think about it, because I probably go crazy. I just do it. But that's a great question. I have no idea how I get all this stuff done, but I know that I love it. I love my job.
So can you tell me more about what's coming next? On Instagram, you said you had just finished a book this weekend. What was that about?
It's a book, and the cover was just released today. The cover was just revealed today. It's a book about baseball and jazz music and social justice, and it's called Swing. Awesome. And it comes out on October the 2nd, and I'm really excited about it. It's a different kind of novel. It's very different, but I feel like it's timely, and it's a good book.
And will you write any more about the Bell family? I kind of want to know what happens with them from here on out.
I'll never say no. If I can figure out another story to tell about them, sure. People ask me a lot to write about Roxy.
Yeah, I could see that.
So maybe there's a Roxy Bell story coming up. Who knows?
And have you ever thought about any of your books sort of turning into film in any way?
Yeah, we've been working on a crossover TV series for a long time.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so hopefully that will come to pass, and certainly I could see Solo and Swing as movies. It's definitely been something that I've thought about.
So I just signed up for your solo book club for my kids for the summer. Can you tell listeners more about the book club?
Say it one more time.
The solo book club that you're launching for this summer. I guess you're releasing different guides and discussion videos while we all read solo together through the month of June.
Oh yeah, it's something a little fun we thought we'd do online. Little book club with the author, and I'll be doing some readings from the book, and I got some questions and stuff I'll be answering and some commentary, and it'll be kind of interactive. It'll be kind of fun.
Awesome. And do you have any advice to aspiring writers out there, kids or grown-ups?
I think just read as many good books as you can. I think I was in Mexico this weekend, and I was on the beach, and I did absolutely nothing but read. And I had planned on not writing for a while. I needed a break. And I read this one book by Kevin Young. It's called Brown. It's a collection of poems, and it just rocked my world. And I just loved this book of poems. And I loved it so much that when I got back home, I said, ooh, I'm ready to start writing again. And, of course, I had already decided I wasn't going to write for a while. I needed a break. But I think a good book can sort of inspire you to not just want to write, but to want to write really good, to want to write about something that matters. And so my advice would be read everything you can get your hands on and enjoy it and be inspired.
And can you just tell me a little bit about all of your nonprofit work, like your work in Ghana?
What would you like to know?
So you have something called Leap for Ghana, which trains teachers and builds libraries and health clinics. How did you originally pick Ghana? And I know there was something that you had started building a library, but realized without a health clinic, it was a waste, right? They had to get people healthy first. Is that sort of what happened?
Yeah, sort of like that. I've been going to Ghana for 6 years and I've been going to a village that a friend of mine is the queen of, and I just wanted to do something in this village that helped match the resources or match their ambition with some resources because they didn't have a whole lot. And so, I decided the best, what I do is I write. I know books, so maybe a library would work. And then that sort of evolved into a library and a health clinic because I realized the library wasn't, their idea, it was mine, and I really needed to ask them what they wanted. And, of course, they wanted a health clinic. So then the library evolved into a library and a health clinic. And now it's evolved into a library, health clinic, so the internet cafe. And so it's evolved, and it's opening in mid-July. And I think it's been 6 years. It's been part of my life's work. And I'm excited. Once this is done, I'm excited to see what's next. Like, I have no idea. Where am I going to go next? What am I going to do next? But I know I have to be doing something because I want to live this authentic life that's about trying to change the world. Otherwise, writing to change the world becomes moot. Like, what am I writing about? Why am I writing? I really want to be actively involved in trying to make the world a better place, trying to be a willing participant in this world.
Well, like everything else that you've written and said, I find that super inspiring and a great note to end on. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And as you can tell, I'm a huge fan. Sorry to be totally, just so ridiculously complimentary, but I really do feel that your work is sensational. And thank you for, if nothing else, for entertaining my son for a couple hours so I could do something else.
That's cool. Well, you're very welcome. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate your time. Thanks so much. I can't wait to read Love.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.